All right, and welcome back in to Dolan's Dugout on a Monday night with your host, Steve Dolan, joined tonight by Adam Paul of EC Preps. Steve, we're still here. We're not going anywhere. And I think it's important to continue to check in each week and see how everybody's doing.
Well, Ramon, I'm absolutely with you. Let's keep having a show every week. I mean, there's still sports to talk about and all, although we know right now with our high school sports, it's very abbreviated. We know the next real news is going to come on April 3rd when the 10 state commissioners meet. And maybe even that night, if it's possible, we might try to get the commissioner, Jerry Schneep, or maybe John Maffey from the San Diego Union Tribune to come on with us the night it all breaks, just to let our people in East County and those, listening throughout along the lines, what's going on with high school sports. Because again, the next real date is April 3rd when they're going to decide what happens going forward. And I know, Adam, you've been following a lot of stuff too. Tell us what you know about what's going on prep sports wise right now.
Just April 3rd is the next target date, which was mentioned. I know, despite the lack of a state title game, Cal High Sports is still putting out their Mr. and Mrs. Miss Basketball for the state of California. I know Harold of Bend, I hope I pronounced his last name correctly. He conducted like a straw poll, I believe it was, on Twitter, and La Jolla Country Day superstar, Oregon bound, University of Oregon bound Tahina Pau was leading that, what he called mock straw poll, 15 votes to 0.
Wow.
So she's more than likely, I assume, will be named Miss State Basketball for the state of California, I would assume. Other than that, I mean, it's just everybody's, still doing what it looks like, at their house. And, if you've been online, you've seen the videos and stuff of the different kids doing things at their house and stuff. I mean, just hoping that some sort of season is able to occur down the line here.
Well, Steve and Adam, earlier this week, we had a couple of guests on East County Sports and a couple of locals that named their choice for their college selections in the future. A couple of juniors made their announcements this week. Of course, El Capitan High Junior, Mackenzie Curtis. She's going to be going to the University of New Mexico. That should be great, heading to the pit to play her games there. It looks like a fine fit for Mackenzie. And also, Christian High Junior made her announcement this week, Kristen Williams, and she's going to be staying home and going to the University of San Diego. And looks like a pretty good fit there. She's a great point guard. Both players probably set up for big seasons next year in their senior year. Interesting. I didn't get a chance. You can go back and see the interview that we had with Kristen. It was really great. We had her and her coach. We had Mackenzie and her dad, Coach Darren, also. But one thing I didn't ask Kristen, and I wish I would have, she mentioned that, and it seemed like her two choices, although she did have other interests and visited a few campuses, was between University of San Diego and UC San Diego. Obviously, both great choices. I was just curious, and I should have asked her, though, if the fact that UC San Diego's Division I status was, they have that probationary period that prevents them from playing NCAA tournament games for the first few years. So I don't know if that had any factor in that, but it's going to be great. She looked great. They had a little graphic of her in her USD uniform, little Photoshop job, but it looked great. Looks good in Torero blue. So a couple of choices this week. And Steve, I'll just give you this. I'll let you comment here, but I don't know. This is a little bit controversial as far as news is concerned, but I think it does play into the fact what Adam was telling us about that date. If indeed the government, the federal government, tries to ramp up and pressure states into loosening their restrictions within the next week or two, maybe going against what the scientists are saying, or maybe once testing results start to come back regarding the COVID as it continues to expand, maybe they'll determine that those numbers may be low enough that we can start to unsocial distance ourselves. One interesting thing it could be, we could see prep sports and localized sports start to happen maybe before we see national sports start to take place. Now, we could be talking, I don't think we're talking about 1 or 2 weeks down the line, despite what the president said today. But as the school year, whether or not they end up resuming that's going to have a lot to do whether or not there are any sports played. I would imagine that the decision would likely be made that we will not play. But that was a big news story today that maybe the president wants to loosen restrictions a little bit. So
we'll see, Ramon, because I know one thing that we all know, this is the week, because the Surgeon General has said this is the week where he expects to see the big spike in the coronavirus. So it'll be interesting to see how the week plays out. Just one thing I'm going to tell people, because as you all know, my wife is a registered nurse. She's in healthcare. Healthcare workers are putting their own health and lives at risk to help save the lives of others. And I hope people start obeying for now the social distancing. Some people think it's a joke or this or that. It's not. The more people practice social distancing, the more this will go away. I'll just give you a good personal example from a few years ago. We all know people who are know-it-alls, who know more than the experts, let's face it. I worked with a lady at San Diego State. She knew more than doctors, because I remember one year I told her, I said, hey, I got my flu shot today. And she said, flu shot? That's stupid. You don't need a flu shot. Well, guess who was sick for a month that winter? And, the funny thing is, you don't wish it on anybody, but if it's going to happen to somebody, you wish it on people like that. I mean, just like, in San Diego now, closing the parks and the beaches to people. So if people are smart, this thing will go away. But then when you see on TV some kid in Florida last week saying, coronavirus, I'm going to enjoy my spring break. I don't care if I get it. Stupidity will keep coronavirus going, but if people obey what they're told, I think what you're saying could be true. We could get this thing going quicker than what some may think July or August. It'll be a lot quicker than that, but people have to do what they're told to do, or else it's all out the window.
Adam, what's overlooked a lot of times when you go for your flu shot or take or refuse your flu shot, you're not necessarily taking a flu shot to continue to protect yourself against the flu. You're also protecting others.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I know I'm off now for 2 weeks, and so I was telling Steve earlier today, I got my location for I work for Goodwill as a donation attendant, and off of Los Coches Road, and my location got shut down for the next 2 weeks. I had an option to go, to go work at another location, but they were gonna, they gave us an option of 2 weeks off with pay for 35 hours a week. So I was just like, you know what? I'll just take the 2 weeks off. And interestingly enough, the location that I was going to go work at, Lakeside, next to the rodeo grounds, got shut down also. So, I know the stores are probably still open, and maybe 1 or 2 of the more busier donation centers are still open. But I know that they did shut down quite a few of our donation center drop-offs for at least until April 3rd. So theoretically, I go back to work on April the 4th. So I mean, we'll see. I hope with everything. What I'm seeing though is I'm seeing a lot of people out and about. I went to go get a bite to eat in Santee tonight, and there was people playing on the tennis courts and stuff at Santana High, and I'm like, what are you doing? And then there were people on the football field and stuff. I'm like, what are you doing? But so we'll see. I hope, but like you said, they closed all the trails and the parks and stuff, because I did
in the city of San Diego. I don't know if that's a county edict right now.
No, well, Mission Trail. I mean, you can't go on Mission Trails. They actually had people standing out there turning people away.
That is a City of San Diego park, is it not?
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah.
That's still a city, but I think it could extend to the county. I mean, if I could, like, I've got a friend of mine who I talk to pretty much every day who's in suburban Dallas, and just today in Dallas County, the shelter in place that we have throughout California, they've enacted that now. And it's funny because Ramon, where you're sitting right now, Petco Park behind you, so to speak, as we all know, 3 days from now, the Padres were supposed to open. As you know, I'll be doing the games if and when they start for Fox Sports San Diego. We don't know any more than anybody else. One thing good I will say so far for TV, I know that, for instance, in the NCAA tournament, from what I understand, pretty much all the people who were going to work that tournament for TV and all, they did get paid. And I got an email today from Fox Sports that they paying people from like March 16th or April 12th for any events. And it's funny because the Padres are on Fox Sports San Diego, but remember that Sinclair actually owns the rights to Major League Baseball now. So even though it is called Fox Sports San Diego, it is Sinclair that's running the show now. I think my understanding is that it's still going to be Fox Sports San Diego for baseball season, and come the fall that Sinclair will officially take over with whatever they call their new group. So so there's a lot of interesting things there too. But again, nobody can tell us when it's going to start. I mean, everybody, your guess is as good as mine, or my guess is as bad as yours, let's say,
Yeah. Well, like I said, I think that there will be some movement. It's going to be a lot of push and pull, maybe even a tug of war between the highest office in this country and what scientists might say. So all I can do, I'm not going to defend any of those people, Adam. They're out and about. We had maybe, you're seeing activities, so there could be some criticism there. Some of us, we had to work. I've been out and about this week. I even one day was at UCSD Medical Center where there was a drive-up triage set up, and you could go in, wrap around, and I'm not belittling the point. I'm just pointing out, I'm not even going to reference the statistics. I think it's obvious to anyone that's kind of looked at the San Diego statistics. We're lucky. We're very, very lucky here in this county to be in the position that we are in. How that's happened, it's a miracle of God. Who knows? But there was just 2 cars in line, and it seemed like one guy was asking for directions. So I saw one guy pull into a space. The doctor went up. He had his full mask on, and he's like, "Hey, buddy, how you doing?" So he's trying to bring a sense of levity to it. Just, we'll take care of you, get your tests done or whatever. And we'll see. Let those people decide what we're going to do. Obviously, one of the big stories in sports, Steve, other than our local stuff, is whether or not the 2020 Olympics in Japan is going to be taking place. To me, because that's the ultimate sporting event. We love the Super Bowl and the World Series, all those. But the Olympics, to me, still represents the highest level of athletic competition throughout the world, the World Cup notwithstanding, just because of the sheer enormity of it. And I think this is where the Olympics will have to decide. They've given themselves up to 4 weeks to decide, but I just can't see any way that the Olympics can take place on schedule, given the scope of 11,000 athletes coming from around the world, different countries coming in, and then how many spectators, right? Millions, a million at least, coming to Tokyo and the outer areas. So I just can't see ethically how they can proceed with the Olympics come July.
Not even from an ethic, not even just from an ethics that that type of standpoint, but Roger Bannister made a really interesting point just recently. At least that's what they said. I caught the quote on one of the talk shows I was listening to as I was sitting in a parking lot eating my dinner one night, and they said that he was quoted as saying that, okay, let's say you have the Olympics this year. Well, for track and field, how are you going to be able to do it? People aren't running or training. You're just going to, it's not even going to be fair. It's not even going to be champions of champions. It's going to be, okay, here you roll out the ball or whatever and go and do it. it's going to be terrible, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, Adam, it's not going to happen this year. Now, Ramon, I think all of us are into odds. I would say the odds on the Olympics happening this year, no, would be about minus 1,500. Because, like, I think, Ramon, the two words you used, the sheer enormity of it, there's just no way it's going to happen. What I think may happen eventually, again, is, like I say, Ramon's there in front of Petco Park. Not going to happen probably till at least June, maybe July. Like I say, that we can all guess. Nobody knows. But one thing, just so people know what they are doing, the players are trying to stay in shape, because when they come back, they want to get as many games in as possible, because the more games they play, the more money they get paid. I mean, I think what the threshold's about, if they play 130, they'll definitely get paid for a whole season, which would normally be 162. So everyone wants to get in as many games as possible. But what they're doing right now, because of the way that the whole shelter in place is, the Padres started working out today. The ones who are in San Diego at Petco Park. I know Manny Machado and Fernando Tatis Jr. were there. You can work out in groups of 2 to 3. You can have 2 to 3 people in this area, 2 to 3 in that, because of the whole shelter in place. They got to be real careful. I mean, because obviously they don't want to do anything wrong, because it definitely will come back on them legally. But, as you know, with players, they've been told 3 things: go to your city where you play, like San Diego. Some have stayed in Peoria, Arizona, where spring training was. Some have gone to their homes, wherever that might be, and that was up to them. Nobody's going to get punished for doing any one of the 3. But the thing is, I think that these players want to stay as close as possible to game shape. You're not going to stay in 100% game shape in groups of 2 to 3, but stay as close as possible, because they want to have as short a spring training as possible when they come back, so that they can play as many games as possible. And one thing along those lines, as many games as possible, the double headers are going to come back. They're going to have to play that to make up games. And one thing I've even thought myself, I remember as a kid going to minor league doubleheaders. You either had a 9 and 7 inning game, or maybe 2 7-inning games. Maybe that's what they do. And people say, well, that's not fair. It is fair, because everybody will be doing the same thing. So it'll be interesting, because I think it's even tomorrow that the owners and the players are supposed to meet, and the commissioner, to kind of hash it out, because there's a lot of these type things. Scheduling, too. You're not going to, if you start June 1st, you're not going to pick up where you would have, because maybe the Padres were to play the Dodgers 13 more times and Colorado 6 more times. Well, that needs to be equalized, so the schedules have to get it right.
They'll do the schedule again. And Steve, I think it's a novel idea. You can remember some of those lower level 7-inning double headers, but these owners are going to go for 2 gates every time, aren't they?
Oh, yeah, but gates, what they'll do is they'll do the day-night doubleheader, where you're going to go to the 12:30 game and pay your admission. Adam's going to come back to the 7 o'clock game and play his admission. So, yeah, it's going to be a doubleheader, but it's going to be the day-night doubleheader where you pay during the day and he pays at night. It's not going to be the old 2 for 1.
That's not going to go over well with the season ticket holders. I know that.
Adam used to go to the day game at San Diego Stadium, and then he would hide in those whirl around when you get up, and then wait until the night game, and no one ever find him.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. I remember one time with my dad and brother and I. Once it was a doubleheader back in the day. For people who don't know, when you played a doubleheader, you played one game, and then 30 minutes later you played the next. One time we came in the 5th inning of the second game. We just walked in, and it just so happened the game went 15 innings, so we saw 9-10 innings for free. There are a lot of stories like that out there.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah, and while we're on the topic of San Diego sports, one thing that happened just recently, a guy named Jack Henn, who was 79 years old. The name probably doesn't mean anything to anybody hardly, but he is unique. He is the only coach in the history of San Diego State athletics who ever coached a team to an NCAA title, the 1973 volleyball team, men's volleyball team. And of course, one of the star players is a guy named Chris Marlowe, who now is the play-by-play voice for the Denver Nuggets. But, Jack is unique. I mean, because, Brian Dutcher notwithstanding, because maybe Brian would have done this year. I don't think the Aztecs would have won it all, but I think they had a chance to maybe go to the Sweet 16. Although, as you know, that was all matchups. But I just think once it got down the line, if eventually they went up against the Kansas or Baylor, it just wasn't going to happen. But that's all speculation. So we have
the Aztecs, I heard and was reading the early poll for next year was that they're coming in ranked 17th
in basketball.
Yeah, for next year.
Okay, yeah, because that makes sense. I mean, football is going to be a little more difficult. I think Rocky Long probably got out what the getting was good. I mean, because he had all those 10-win seasons. But as much as, okay, I even have a San Diego State sweatshirt on, as much as you'd like to think otherwise, I think that it may be a little bit of a downturn for San Diego State football here in the next few years. I'm not saying they can still go to bowl games. Heck, anymore, you finish 500, you go to a bowl game. And I'm not so sure that there's a whole lot of 10-win seasons in their near future.
Steve, I want to ask back about. Did you attend the 1973 National Volleyball Championship? It was played right here in town, right?
It was played at Peterson Gym. I did not. I was a senior at El Capitan that year, but I do know from John Maffey, and he's got a story in the paper tomorrow, I believe, that the two games against in the finals, the NCAA Final Four here, drew, I believe, 13,000 people at Peterson Gym.
Biggest crowd ever for a volleyball game. For a volleyball match in this country at the time.
But if you do the math, Peterson Gym only held 3,500 people, so it should have been 7,000. It was 13, so they had people literally sitting in the rafters to watch that NCAA.
My dad was actually at that game.
Oh, wow.
He, like you said, they were hanging from the rafters to watch that game. Because, like I said, Peterson Gym only held 4,000 people. I mean, heck, if you remember, during Beth Burns' first run as the Aztec women's coach, if you didn't get there a couple hours ahead of time, you didn't get in the gym. I remember. I went to one of their NCAA games against Purdue, and it was just that way. I mean, it came down to final possession, Purdue won. But I mean, Peterson Gym, I talk about a historical place here. To me, that maybe the San Diego Coliseum, where they used to have wrestling with people like Freddie Blassie. Those were maybe two of the most memorable places in town to me. I mean, they had some events there, but it's still there too. And they do have some events there, and they've refurbished it, because when I worked there at San Diego State, they redid it. But again, the events there, you're not going to have a men's or women's basketball game there anytime soon, which is ironic, because I think it was 1991 UNLV came over here when they were number one in the nation and played in that gym. They actually had a women's game probably about 10 years ago. It was Pack the Pete night. They gave out T-shirts for women's basketball, and it was probably one of the last times that they played in that gym for an actual regular season basketball game. In fact, I want to say they played Air Force or something, because I went to the game, and it was like $10 to get in, and the first however many people got a red shirt said "Pack the Pete" on it, and it was pretty cool, and was quite a good crowd, and I don't want to slight the women's team now, but they may want to look at playing in Peterson Gym, because working for Elite, having worked some of the women's games, sometimes there's majority of the times there's more of us in red shirts than there are people in the stands.
Yeah, and Adam, that's a good point. One thing they may consider doing at Viejas Arena, and I've never seen this. I've seen it in the sports arena. Like, for instance, I know the last San Diego Seals lacrosse game we did, they did the curtain on both end zones, so to speak, where they cut the sides way down. So what that did, it compacted it to where all the people were kind of in the middle and very few people up above. And even though it was their normal crowd, it was twice as loud, because everybody was in the concentrated areas, as opposed to 3,000-4,000 people spread out throughout the arena. They were all compacted in the middle, and it really made a difference.
It definitely. I mean, if you've been to the, some of the old time wrestling events at the sports arena, when they didn't sell out, like in the early 90s, it was pretty cool. Just having, the partial sports arena filled up, because it was really loud and everything. But no, I mean, I don't know. San Diego State, that's such a unique deal there. I wish the best for the women's team, especially since we have I can't remember where Stacey Terry, who played at El Cap.
Yes,
as the head coach.
Yes. Yeah, Stacy's been there several years now. And, ironically, she's married to Rodney Terry, the men's coach at Fresno State. Of course, they met when Rodney was an assistant at San Diego State. But, I'm keep looking at Ramon up there, though, with Petco Park behind him. Ramon, I'm going to ask you a question. Since you're in the vicinity of Petco Park there, so to speak. When baseball comes back, do you think crowds will be bigger because everybody will be ready for baseball, or will they be smaller because people have gone through social distancing?
I think it'll matter upon the timing of that. Again, despite what happened today and some of the news that came out, I still think we could be a minimum of several weeks away from even returning to any kind of national competitive sports. But I don't know. I saw Adam shaking his head yes, and I expect kind of a 9/11 feel. I just expect the anticipation, the desire for people. I understand. I get the social distancing factor. That's why those statistics that come back are going to be so big when they start to ramp up this testing. And I'm not here, like you said, we know nothing. We are 3 sports fans just praying and hoping for the best. But the more testing that comes back, those percentages are going to continue to flatten out. And it is a credit. Now, I know that hospitals in some areas are projecting, they're gearing up, they're ramping up. Talk about shortages. They are there in New York, in Washington, but they're starting to try to send equipment there, be prepared and ready. And you know why? It's a credit to Steve. You know why. The healthcare professionals that can do their job, they have lived for this moment. They're scared. They're worried. They're proud and ready to fight this. And I think that's what's going to determine it. You're going to see, if there is certain restrictions that come back a little bit, you may see it kind of regionalized because of the hotspot areas that we're seeing. You know, why can't there be, I know I'm getting off track here, but why can't there be more local municipalities say, hear from the CDC, say, you know, if you are in the vicinity of, if you live in New Rochelle, New York, please do not travel far. Try to stay in. Same for some of those other areas that are hard hit. And I was going to talk about what Adam saw earlier, and I didn't finish my thought, but seeing people out and about in San Diego. And you know what? People were out there. One thing that people are doing, I promise you, because I've seen a little bit of it. I'm practicing social distancing, but I've had some requirements that have taken me around the city and the entire county a little bit. They are exercising. They're exercising with their kids. They're running. More so. I mean, we are an active society in San Diego, but it is rampant right now. People are out there exercising just to get going and get moving. And I think that's because we kind of feel almost, I don't want to say invincible. That's a bad word to use right now down here, but we feel strong here because the numbers just aren't here in San Diego. And that's not to say that there aren't people who have been affected already that haven't been tested, because we're feeling strong, we're feeling healthy. We're not reporting to those testing sites. Like I said, when I went to UCSD, there was hardly anybody in line. It was like 1:30 in the afternoon. So I think that's what's going to kind of limit it a little bit. But I think if baseball and other sports wait, I don't know. It just feels like there's going to be a rush to get back and get in. It's scary. We're going to pack the stadiums because that's what we want to do.
I was going to say, go ahead, Steve.
No, I'm just going to make it real quick. One thing about a rush to get back, though, got to be careful, because what if baseball rushes to get back and all of a sudden 3 players have coronavirus? Then it's all over again.
Guaranteed, Steve. Look, this isn't a social show. We're supposed to talk about sports. It could be possible that in all the professional leagues that a high percentage of people have coronavirus. There is numbers coming out that say, you know, many people are asymptomatic to it, but we're trying to flatten the curve. That's why we're in this situation. We're not scared. We're just trying to flatten the curve and save the lives of people who are at risk. And overwhelming, I don't have to tell you, but I'm just saying it for people that are out there watching. Maybe they don't follow the news a little bit. What we're trying to do is flatten the curve to protect our healthcare system and our healthcare workers. Unfortunately, we could be heading down a deadly path of socioeconomic disaster where if it lasts too long, people are not going to get regular health care. They're not going to take care of themselves, and people are going to get more sick and have other problems that are related to this virus that are not part of this virus. But that's a story for another channel and another day that I can't, even though I just commented on it, I can't comment on because, you know, who am I?
Well, I was going to say, here's a couple things, you know, on my travels tonight. I stopped into the local 7-Eleven on Magnolia, catty corner from the Sonic Burger, and I went in there to get a big gulp, and they didn't have any cups. And I looked at the clerk. I'm like, "Are you guys out of cups?" He's like, "No, we actually have to fill up the drinks ourselves for you."
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh, okay, I'm okay with that." So, you know, I got my big gulp, but I you know, the clerk actually had to leave from behind the counter, take the cup from behind the counter, and go over. And I said, "Can I get a Coke?" And he had to fill it up for me and do everything. And then, you know, I paid, and then I left. And then, well, I mean, here's how fast the information's comes out. Mayor Minto of Santee kind of did an update video for in front of Mass Park yesterday. I don't know what time it was done. It was in the daytime, like probably early afternoon, early morning. And later in the evening or later in the afternoon, the CDC for the local CDC, San Diego Gov, put up the latest numbers for cases here in San Diego. And because in the video he said that Santee, as of right now, didn't have any cases. Well, sure enough, in that latest information that came out from the San Diego.gov, both Lakeside and Santee had one case, and Lakeside had 1 or 2 cases of confirmed coronavirus. So I mean, that's just how fast the information comes out.
Yeah.
It's always changing. And you know, and I pointed that, and I messaged him, and he really appreciated that because he hadn't seen that information yet. So it's like you said, Moni, we don't know who has it and who doesn't, because it's not like the flu or, you know, a bee sting or whatever where you feel it right away.
Yeah, we need more testing. I believe is going to make the public feel more comfortable, because the broader the scale, the more people that act. This is, oh man, I hope we don't get kicked off of YouTube, but this is not an unpopular theory. The more people that have coronavirus is going to lead to comfortability in the public's thinking, because most people, a high percentage of people, especially healthy people, stronger people, younger people, are going to pass through. They might get sick, they might not. But if they're a number, they're going to be a number. They're going to be a case. The number of cases will get bigger. There will be deaths, unfortunately, but I don't want to talk about that right now. Let's talk about sports, or we'll wrap it up, Steve. I'll just say this, though, guys. The one thing that I have found the most interesting thing, because I'm a very compulsive person. You guys know me well. And, you know, when we talk about sport, I'm compulsive about sports, right? Whatever it is, I'm compulsive. That's the way I am. And right now, what I'm most compulsive about is when I do have to go out and about and seeing how everyone practices their social distancing, and the businesses, the way they practice their COVID procedures. For example, when we go to the grocery store, 5 people, some of the ones I went, 5 people are let in, 5 people are let out. There's tape on the floor, you know, measuring 6 feet across. So it's all very interesting. It's all an interesting social experiment, as scary as it is. Hey, we could go our whole lives without living through the biggest global pandemic of our lives, okay?
Yeah, and just remember, and I mean, let's get off the coronavirus, but let's just remember, follow what the experts say, because the reason they're experts and we're not is because they studied in that field. Because the last point I want to make on this, as far as healthcare workers, like you guys said earlier, there may be people that have coronavirus and you don't know it. Because, like, for instance, if the healthcare workers, if you do surgery on somebody with coronavirus, your entire head is covered and normally you have a mask. Well, the problem could be you do surgery on somebody who you figure is just normal surgery. You find out later that coronavirus and you weren't protected. So remember that our healthcare workers are not being protected the way they should be. That being said, let's relate it to sports. If the last thing I'm going to say about coronavirus is, you know how when you're watching the NCAA tournament or whatever, you know how the scores are constantly rotating? That's what's happening with this thing. So let's just hope, Ramon, where you're at, let's just hope we get back there as soon as possible, but as safe as possible, back to Petco Park.
Yeah, no doubt about it. This is a sports show, and we're going to continue to come back. Hey, we might cover some of these social topics because we're regular people, and we have to perceive what is exactly going on, just like everybody, just like our audience does, and everyone is living through this day by day. But we're just hoping for the best, and we just want to get back to sports because I don't want to be compulsive about COVID and spend all my time looking at those statistics. That scares me.
Yeah, let's just hope the next time we'll catch up probably for people just so you know, it looks like pretty much Monday nights at 8:30. So next Monday, let's hope the statistics we're talking about the most are, batting averages, free throws, etc. But again, we can't avoid what's going on in society either. So I got to say, anything else, or are we good for today?
I just think it'll be interesting in a couple of weeks when all the CIF commissioners and the superintendents meet, via conference or whatever, however they're meeting. Speaking of meeting, I'm seeing something really cool on Twitter. A bunch of athletic directors from across the county and also the country. Amanda Waters, who if you're on Twitter,
that Zoom,
she's huge on Twitter. With a Zoom meeting, and they're bunch of the ADs are getting together and talking about different topics, from the coronavirus to dealing with students, coaches, parents, just spitballing ideas together, and it's really cool to read about this and how I don't know. Honestly, I'm not part of the Zoom meeting, so I don't know any of the specifics. But it's just really cool to see people like that getting together and collaborating on things like this.
Yeah, Steve, if you saw it, I haven't had a chance to see it. So what you have is a screen where they had as many as 20, maybe 30 athletic directors on the screen, just
Very
taking
cool.
turns, each person speaking and giving their perspective or advice or plans in their sections maybe around the country on what to do. Just be careful on Zoom, and don't be like that one Zoom conversation on Twitter, Adam, where that gal had to use the potty and she didn't turn off her Zoom camera. But you can find that on Twitter. But I don't want to ruin your show, Steve.
Whoops. Oh gosh. Well, I hate to end that show that way, but let's just
have some fun.
Yeah, well, anyway, let's just hope, as we all want to wish everybody a good night. As I said, we will be back presumably next Monday night at 8:30. And again, everybody be safe out there. Follow what you're told. Listen to the experts, because when you were talking about the whole thing on Twitter with all the athletic directors, they're experts too. So when it comes to sports, listen to the athletic directors because they know what they're talking about. When it comes to this other stuff, coronavirus, listen to the CDC because they know what they're talking about. We all know people who think they're experts that wouldn't know Stan Humphries from Stan Brock when the Chargers went to the Super Bowl. So just listen to what the experts say because, like I said earlier, do what they do and you won't get the flu for a month like the lady I talked about earlier. Anyway, I'm ready to go. You guys have a good night. Anybody else have anything? Because I'm ready for next Monday night at 8:30 already.
Yeah, no, you can see we're struggling, man. Let's get our sports back, Steve.
Let's do it. And Adam, you have a good night too. And let's wish everybody out in our audience a good night. Thanks so much for listening. And we really appreciate everybody that's been with us this evening. Have a good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.